Hi everyone today. Welcome to The Prescription, episode 7. I'm here with Reese the Poet. It's me, Chanel. I want to thank you for tuning in. And Reese came here today so we can have an open discussion. And the topic today is how sensitive is too sensitive to be considered masculine, to be a male. So I'm going to let Reese start, and then we're just going to have a discussion about what we think.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. What's up, y'all? For those who don't know me, my name is Reese, also known as Reese the Poet. And, being sensitive as a man, I think that's definitely a taboo topic when you talk about being too sensitive or not sensitive enough. Men are oftentimes torn into this kind of like, this paradox, because on one hand, it's like men are told not to have emotions. You need to be strong, you need to be tough, you need to be, a rock. Because you do need to be a foundation, you need to be a support, you need to be able to handle the attacks that are coming to you on the flip side, because you're protecting your family. But on the flip side, men are human too. And so we do have those emotions. And so then when we are conditioned to suppress those things, a lot of times as we have situations where men blow up, or they lose it, they snap, that kind of stuff. But then on the flip side, here's the thing. A lot of men oftentimes, we are coerced into opening up and being vulnerable and getting our emotions out. And we're told that, yes, come on, I'm here for you. So then when we do open up, the response is, oh, wait a minute, that's too much. Back up. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like without even realizing it, you begin to look at that man as less of a man because he's feeling these things or he's crying before you. And I hate to say it, I love my ladies, but in a lot of cases it happens with the ladies in relationships. They want their man to be more open, be more emotional, but then as soon as he does, all of a sudden, it's like in the back of your mind, you almost lose a little respect for him. And that ain't it. So yeah, it's kind of a quick little...
Okay. Well, I'm going to address the female part first,
okay.
Since I'm feminine in this. So I actually agree with that as far as, because I actually wrote a poem about it, and I was talking about basically women opening up to men, and expecting men to open up, but as soon as men open up, they say, oh, that's too much, I can't handle that.
Yeah.
And then you look weak, and then I started thinking about, well, why do certain women do that? And what I kind of came up with is those women are either A, emotionally immature, their emotional intelligence level is low. So they haven't matured yet emotionally. It doesn't matter about your age. You're just not at a place where you understand that both sexes have masculine and feminine energy, and really they're supposed to be balanced. But they can be unbalanced, and men can step into their feminine energy sometimes because they have emotions, like you say, they're human. And also, some women who are naturally feminine have become masculine. Their masculine energy has become too much.
Right.
So when a man opens up to them, that masculine in them steps out, and they're being traditionally conditioned that that's too much.
Right.
Sometimes from seeing it from when they were raised, like they see their father talk to their brother like that, or their uncle talk to their brother, and then they perpetuate it by telling their sons that, well, my dad told my brother, hey, you got to be hard, you got to be strong. Well, then they in turn teach that to their son, or they treat their man like that.
Well, I think, I don't mean to cut you off, I apologize, but to be honest with you, I think a big part of that is, the single parent, a lot of people coming from single parent households. So like you think about it, if there's a single mother in the house and she's raising sons and raising, say it's a son and a daughter, she's trying to raise that son to be a man, quote unquote. And so she oftentimes treats him and talks to him, like you said, talks to him like, yo, you need to toughen up, be hard, because he's not just the son, he's the man of the house.
That's true too.
And so then the daughter, she watches this. She sees this, she observes, oh, okay, the man and the boy in the house, he gets treated like this, and then me, I get treated like this. But this is how you're supposed to, like boys should be, this is how men should be. And if you don't have a role model, a male in the household who is representing something more and representing that balance, then you become what you observe. And so then as time progresses, as a lot of women get older, and you get right, fix it. What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to be the man. You're the man of the house. You've been the man of the house since you were 12.
Yes.
Like, haven't you been I watched my brother or my uncle be a man at 10 years old. And what that meant was he ain't crying, he ain't doing none of that stuff. So then you fast forward and now you got these men running around that truly are still those 10-year-old boys with all that emotion trapped inside of them. You know what I'm saying? Because they never got to express that. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the one to say that I think men should be, you know, like out here just crying all willy-nilly and whatnot. I do think there's a certain level of what's the word I'm looking for? Fortitude that a man does need to have in his emotions. He can have emotions. He can express those emotions. But here's the thing. The problem becomes a man can have emotions, but he fails or falls when he becomes emotional. And this goes with women too, I mean anybody, but the reality is there's a famous quote that says that emotions make good servants but terrible masters. It's an interesting concept. And I think that in many cases men, for fear of their emotions becoming the master of their lives, they turn around and try to suppress those emotions to have none at all. But then on the flip side, you're actually doing the opposite, because when you cage an animal, it gets even more savage. And so those emotions rise up, and it's just a cycle of just...
So basically the emotion rise up, and instead of becoming like overly emotional on the softer end, it become overly aggressive or overly assertive.
Correct, exactly.
And it becomes too much.
Exactly.
And it can lead to other things.
Exactly.
Definitely. So, and I was thinking too, as far as with women, and I'm going to speak more on how they were raised. A lot of this is passed down generationally. And it's not just from the men in their life, like I say, it's also from the women in their life. And I also realized too that I was doing some research on chakras. Okay. And I realized that the solar plex, as well as the heart chakra, if they're too open in women, it can cause over-aggression, which is actually a repellent to overly aggressive men. So sometimes that can be balanced out as well. And that might help. And it's like, I'm trying to come up with how can we teach people and teach women as well as men to be open and realize that you can express your emotions. Right. Like you say, you can't be overly emotional, but that goes for both sides, because women can be too emotional as well. You don't want to. You want to stay balanced, because you want the yin and the yang to stay intact. I guess.
Right, in harmony.
In harmony.
Well, I think so. I'm not. So I'm not necessarily versed or keen on the chakra side of it. What I will say is that women who are overly aggressive, I'll tell you one thing: women who are women who are overly aggressive are quite unattractive to men who are solid in their emotions. Because, and I'm gonna be honest with you, like, and don't take this the wrong way. I do understand there's all kinds of different ways people are raised and relationships work in some aspects. Everybody's got their own, one man's tea is another man's coffee. But I can tell you the one thing that men desire more than anything else, most men, is peace. Peace. That's what men want. Like, men, to be honest with you, men don't care about really anything else you got going on. Do you look good, and do you bring me peace? That's really all men care about. Like, that's all men really care about.
I got you.
And the challenge is that when women are oftentimes digging into men, trying to get them to show their emotions, get them to, why don't you talk, why don't you show me this, what happens is that you are disrupting his peace. And that becomes a repellent. You see what I'm saying? You're like, it's like, look, I have a way of dealing with my emotions. When the time comes that I feel the need or feel the urge to open up and be vulnerable with you about that thing, I will. But don't keep pressing me, telling me I need to be more basically like you.
I got you.
Because that's not who I am. And we are not together. We are not together for me to be you. You see what I'm saying? And it goes both ways. You have men who want women to be maybe not as emotional or more docile, and we want them to be more like, you need to just chill out. Okay, well, first of all, women don't operate like that. Women think, women process, they're incubators. Their minds are all interconnected. Everything they deal with is all interconnected. So the reality is, as a man, you have to be emotionally intelligent enough and mature enough to understand how women process information. You may not get it all, You definitely don't understand it all. I'm not gonna act like we do.
Yeah.
But you do have to have a certain maturity to understand, okay, there's going to be waves of emotions at times. Mm-hmm. That's with anything.
Exactly.
But don't try to force those waves back. You learn to sail. You learn to ride those waves together. And that's how you have a successful relationship that gets to the end result that you want, which is a healthy, forever. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a thought.
So now, what's your advice for if a woman is dealing with a man who's not at that moment yet and he's still bottled up? You don't want to push him, but you can tell that he's not emotionally intelligent yet.
Right.
But you don't want to push him, like you said, because you're not trying to disrupt his peace. So what is your advice for that? Like, how do you deal with that kind of situation?
So let me make sure I understand correctly. A woman is dealing with a guy who's not emotionally intelligent or emotionally available. Which?
Both.
Okay, both.
He's not emotionally available because he hasn't matured yet in understanding his own emotions.
Okay. Are you happy?
I would say she's happy with everything else other than him opening up.
Okay, then the reality is it ain't that deep. I mean, because here's the thing: if you are happy, he takes care of you. You take care of him. You guys are moving together. You're growing together. You're building together. All of these things are coming together. There's peace, but he doesn't open up as much as you wanted to on the emotional tip. I mean, so what?
So now let's go to this. You're not happy because they clash because he won't open up, so their love languages are different. So now they're having clashes and little spats and little things about stuff that probably would be, I would say, minimal, but because they don't know how to communicate properly.
Well, you just said it. Communication. I mean, it's having the conversation. If you're clashing because they're not expressing this right, you're not expressing that right, your love languages are all jacked up, you're doing all this, you need to go to counseling. You know what I mean? You need to go to counseling. Like, you all clearly are not speaking the same language. And the more you're not speaking the same language, the more you're going to have a challenge. The more you're going to be butting heads. And the more you butt heads, all you're going to do is give each other a headache and you're not going to solve it.
I got you. All right, we're going to pause for 1 second. Forgot my phone.
It's all good.
I need to play it 555. Go ahead. All right, it should have went back live.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in the first scenario, if you're at peace, there ain't no problems, y'all are good, he's just not that expressive, so what? If you need some expression, go watch the Lifetime channel. You know what I mean? Like, go talk to your girlfriends, because he's good. Like, like any man, put it like this, any mature man, and I add that in there, any mature man that's with somebody who he wants to be with, he's satisfied, he's content where he's at, he loves it, he's good. But any man that has something that he needs to express, when he needs to express it, he will. So if you have made it to what, as a woman, I would advise you, just be there and be prepared for when he does open up to you. Don't try to force it out of him. Because think about it, man, you ain't gonna force nothing out of me. You ain't gonna just take something from me. Like, now I feel like I'm being forced to give you something that I was not prepared to give you. And now there's almost a bit of a trust issue there. It's almost like, can you just leave me alone? And I don't want it to be that way. So in many cases with men, when it comes to emotions, make a space, be a warm embrace for him, and it doesn't, just be there to be ready for when that time comes. When he pulls you aside and says, you know what, babe, I was thinking. I ain't gonna lie to you. I've been having this, but he has to feel comfortable. He has to feel safe to do that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? The more you badger him, trying to get him to do it, and, you'll never expect. But all right. Cool. A lot of men are just gonna shut down on you. They're like, all right, cool.
And I can agree with that. I can agree with that. So now I guess the next question would be not so much the emotional baggage. How, let's say for instance, he's under a lot of stress, and the financial men are usually providers, and he's normally used to being a provider.
Right.
And now he can't provide.
Right.
So how do you approach that? how would you suggest a woman approaches that, trying to, because he may not want to open up, but you can see there's something wrong, and you know, and the stuff starts now falling apart because he's internalizing it instead of just getting it out and getting it over so they can take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's an interesting situation because, you know, there are a lot of men like that. Like, say you lose your job, you don't want to tell your wife because it's like, yo, babe, I don't know how to say that because because you got to think. I mean, you figure, and the reality is most men in the world and culture and all that stuff, everybody, pretty much men are like, what did Chris Rock say? The only people that are unconditionally loved are women, children, and dogs. You know what I'm saying? Men do not have that inherent value. So unfortunately, in our culture, we have been conditioned to think and believe that our value, and people affirm it by agreeing with it and acting as such, where men only have value when they provide something. Men only have, I don't have the respect, I don't have the value, I don't have the meaning or the purpose. Like if I can't provide if I'm not a provider or a protector or whatever the case is, then I lose not only my position as the head of the household, the king of the household, or that position of protection. I feel like I can't give you what you deserve. That's the worst feeling in the world. So it's hard for guys to come out and say stuff like that. That's why I would challenge women. That's what I would challenge them. Pay attention to the little nuances of it. Pay attention. Because if you know something's wrong, he's not expressing what's wrong. Honestly, you should be so in tune to where you could almost already tell. You already know because you are so in tune, and I know you. I know every nuance about you. And sometimes you have to approach it like that and say, babe, can we talk for a minute? Yeah, what's going on? He's going to be trying to be like, yeah, it's all good. And you just look him in his eyes, square. I know you. I'm not against you. Tell him I'm with you. I'm for you. I support you. What's going on?
So basically, make it a safe environment.
It's got to be safe environment.
But I mean, I guess that's also too the basis of the relationship, because if he feels safe, he'd probably be more open to even talk about it to begin with versus a more aggressive style relationship. So I guess the next thing would be, why do we put men in that position where they feel like your only value is in providing when that's not true, because that may not be the dynamic of your household or how other societies, I would say more so how society feels. Say for instance, there's a household where the man is not. They have accepted in their house that the woman is the provider financially, but he's still the head of the household in their house, but they have made that arrangement, how society looks at that situation, and they, make the man feel like he's less, even though they agree and they're happy with that. Like, how do we change the opinion of other people?
It doesn't matter. Other people's opinion doesn't matter. Like, if you all, if you're in your household, you all have established this works for us, this is good, then there's really nothing else to talk about. It doesn't matter what society, it doesn't matter what culture says. Because they got this big move right now. Now, personally, this is not my belief. So, ladies, this ain't my life, okay? So, it ain't. You know what I'm saying? That's my bad grammar. It ain't. But there are guys out there. There's this big move of like stay-at-home dads. Mom is out there, lawyer, doctor, whatever the case is, and dad is at the crib taking care of boom, boom, boom. The crazy part about it is that I listened to an interview. Just because he's at the house doing these things does not mean he is any less of the head.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean his leadership goes away. He is taking a different role in the relationship, because you have to designate between genders and then you have roles. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, the role situation is very different. Yes. Like, if he's a better cook than you, guess what? He can cook if he wants to. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't make him any less of the leader of the headship. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If she is better at finances, hey, bro, let her have it. Yeah. A perfect example, and some of y'all might get dinged or canceled or something, but Bill Cosby, right? Y'all remember the Cosby Show? Okay, y'all remember the Cosby Show?
Yeah, I remember the Cosby.
Right, that was my favorite show back in the day. And the reality is that he was not the finance guy.
No,
Claire was the she handled the books and the bills and that kind of stuff. He handled the people, he led the household and the kids. She handled all of the structure and all of those things. And in many cases, that works.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. You know, identify what works in your household, in your relationship. And that is what matters. Don't worry about what, you know, culture or The View or, you know, whatever show you saw on BET is talking about or whatever.
And I guess the reason I brought that up is because it can work in your house, but see, a lot of people allow other people to come in their ears, and that's why I was like, if we can change the opinion of society, because like you say, it's role based, it's not gender based. It doesn't mean that the man is any lesser if he can still run a household regardless of the role or position he's taking in the house. But society says he's now lesser, even though he's not, and he'll have friends come in who may be less emotionally intelligent and say, hey, you know, or family members on her side, you know, and it's like, so that's why I'm like, how do we change the role of society as a whole? I know we say it doesn't affect, but we want more people to be accepting, because just because you don't do it in your house doesn't mean you have to try to tamper with someone else's house and make them unstable or make them have a question what works for them.
I am, so there's a lot there, but I'm going to tell you, it goes back to what I said the first time. It doesn't matter what society thinks. Because the reality is, society is all, like our current society also says the truth is what we decided to be. Our society also says that, you know, the greatest role models are the people, you know, twerking and jerking all over the stage and stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, our society also says that the government is good for you. I mean, let's be honest. Like, our society says all kind of stuff that's crazy. You know, like let's if we want to be real about it. So when you talk about society is changed not by massive movements, but by individual effort. Individual effort turns into massive movements. And the reality is if more people mind their own business, the world would be a better place. If more people were in their relationship, handled their things inside their relationship, didn't go to social media, didn't go to your latest person that you follow on TikTok who's some love guru who tells you the secret to the happy relationship, not to your Instagram, whatever relationship where the people are looking like, oh my gosh, my relationship is so awesome, the dad stays at home and da-da-da-da, and you think, okay, I want that, and that's not the relationship that you have, that's not the life you live. Stop. We got to learn to think for ourselves. And if we can get in our little individual boxes and just be and set the example as this is what works for us, period. Doesn't matter what CNN or Fox says. It doesn't matter what Sad Guru said. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It don't matter what they say. Like, at the end of the day, what works for you? If y'all are good with this works in the headship, this works, then what we talking about?
I agree. Well, we're going to kind of wrap it up today. And do you have any last words, anything you want to say, anything you want to express before we wrap up? Not a whole lot. I think we covered a lot of stuff. What I would say is there are two things we have to remember in any relationship or just dealing with each other, right? Number one, to truly love somebody is a choice, you know, and with that choice comes sacrifice and there comes compromise. And that's not simply just doing something that maybe they want to do or you don't really want to do it, but it also means that if you want him to be more emotional, guess what? Sometimes you may have to just let that go for a while. You may have to just back up and let him come to you. And on the flip, and the other side is it doesn't matter what you got going on, because it doesn't matter what you got going on if you don't love yourself. Too many people are walking around here are using people as a means to fulfill their own lack of love for themselves. They're trying to find value in other people. And one of the biggest challenges is that if you put expectations on somebody, if you put somebody on a pedestal thinking that this person, if you can get them to open up, they will lift you out of whatever emptiness, trauma, or depression that you have, then what's going to happen is you're going to end up getting your feelings hurt. And you're going to end up being lost and further deeper in the abyss. So, it starts with you. Love yourself. Figure out what you like.
figure out who you like, what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want to live, have some foundation of truth and morals and ethics, and then after that, you find somebody who goes along with that and y'all grow together. And let people just be, man. You don't need to make anybody be anything. Just let people be. You know what I'm saying? And from there, that's all I got.
I mean, I really can't even say anything after that.
Oh.
I was gonna like, but I totally agree. And just to piggyback off of that, basically, how I would say it is, for two people to truly come together, they both have to be whole. If you're broken and he's broken, it's not going to work. Two people broken do not make a whole. So if you're searching to be whole in another person, you will never find that whole piece. Two whole pieces have to be whole before they can come together to complete the circle. So as he says, you have to find the self-love. And if anybody knows, the self-love to me is the Trinity. It's loving yourself, it's loving in the divine, your creator, Heavenly Father, whoever you say, as well as it's love with your mate. But you have to have the first two to get to the last. And now I just want to go ahead and just express some of the things Reese does. Reese, you want to tell them about your work? You're a photographer.
Yeah. You know, guys, reach out to me. As many of you may or may not know, obviously I'm a slam poet. You know, I travel around and I speak. You know, recently had the privilege of gracing the TED stage, which was really cool. So I'm looking forward to good things to come. I'm a youth motivational speaker. If you have a school or an organization or something like that, you have a group of young people, teenagers, early college age, whatever case is, I'd love to come out and talk to them, encourage them to do some healthy life choices. I started a production company, and so we do photography, and that's kind of like one of my main things, and then music for commercial, TV, films, indie films, your social media, your commercials, like with all those things, creative projects, you know, documentaries, all those things. And so holla at me if that's something that you're interested in. You can follow me at Reese the Poet. You probably see it somewhere in this live, but at Reese the Poet, you can follow me. And And in photography, you can follow at Captured Freedom. That's CAPTURED, Freedom, FREEDOM. That's all one word. And I approve this message.
He approves this message. All right, I approve this message too. I want to thank Reese so much for coming out. That was very insightful. He gave us a lot of information, especially for women, just to be able to understand the men's side of it. And I'm going to elaborate in a further podcast on my own more about the women's side. But I want to thank you again for tuning in to The Prescription, and you guys have a wonderful day. And as always, light and love.